Somewhere once upon a time there was a wretch who heaped scorn on every inch and peered with malevolence on every nook and corner of the earth. And he nonetheless, hearing of a poet of great talent, realized that there must be a super subtle genius in this poet if he could make the world as wretched as it were. He thought in this way. One poet descended from the people of the Atlia Mountains, as the Japanese are, Yukio Mishima, speaks of purple as a lavish color, a color which nature seldom provides anything so lavish as. Thinking of an utterly important moment in Heidegger where he thinks the thought that it may have undergirded his thought all along, but it's in Was heißt denken, in what is called thinking, where he says that when we speak, we are thinking, and not the other way around. When we think, we are speaking, and not the other way around, as metaphysics or the sciences still believe. Mishima had a theory about his own poeticizing, that he said to himself, just because I see something, this absolute purple bougainvillea, or how this flower actually probably isn't completely purple, but when he thinks something that he can bring out with a poetic line, like nature seldom provides a color so lavish as purple, that this is just as much real as anything else, all the humdrum things that people are experiencing, or what the miserable person is experiencing. But the strange thing about that thinking, when he says it, brings it into words, and Heidegger's saying this saying is thinking, rather than the other way around, where metaphysics and the sciences act as though there were, and even common sense, I would say, there's a moment when something's happening, and then we give expression to it in words. But Heidegger's saying, right now, as we speak, this is the thinking. Even that misanthrope hearing or reading Mishima can experience that. So it is in the same world. And supposing those words came out of the matrix of the ready-to-handedness that Mishima was in, where he had that peculiar, or to us to hear in this world where such expression is something strange and rare, a rare guest, as it were, a sojourner from another place, the poetic, we nonetheless, that comes into our thinking when we hear that. And I've noticed, since that line became a spore in my gray matter, as it were, I have again and again noticed purple, because first, just because of the line was on my mind, but then one can even get some wisp of the thinking of the poet and what he might have seen that drove that to that any fundamental line of poetry in that way. So Heidegger is saying poetry and metaphor are on the one side, and then this positing or apophantic speech, or speech that can be true or false, is on the other side. And he seems to be trying to um, outstrip this division and come into the grund of it, or the ground of it, and perhaps also to grip it with by speaking, this Grundbegriffe that we've started into. Um, but okay, just that much preparing for um, more thinking of the Grund or ground, and Begriffe, or idea, concept, understanding, or gripping, the gripping of the ground. Seemingly, although it can become spun and dizzied out, our flesh can get dizzied amidst the ready to hand, our bodies amidst the ready to hand, even through contemplating the thinking that we're doing with speech when we see things according to that way of speaking. Um, Certainly, that wouldn't only happen through the super subtle genius of a poet, but also through the super subtle genius of um, a physicist of the first rank, who points out something that hasn't been pointed out about the world, which then he speaks and then can be thought that way. Um, um, how so far all this will, just speaking this here, can come into what Heidegger still says we should be able to do as thinking beings, which is to think when we go further into the text and breathe something into it that we can think was yet to be seen. But so far as we planted the seed now, this is, I believe, what Heidegger's already calling the genuine willing. If the seed is planted, if it's part of our thinking, then that's what it is to will, true will, according to Heidegger, according to this sense, I believe, of the steadfast resoluteness. And at the same time, um, it's withdrawing, but it withdraws only because we, and that it withdraws too, are perhaps artificially disconnected, and maybe even a way of speech which could um, bring that disconnection or cleavage um, uh, to the possibility of our thinking to um, adjust better in something like the way we were thinking about this prototype idea in the earlier recording, where our thinking is always like a prototype that everything kind of sluices into, the river it flows into, but it's the same river of the thinking. So in this way, the thinking or speaking, the thinking that we're doing with speech, is continually offset with the grund, or the ground, or that which is a very large concept, which is hooping over everything. These ideas bleed together like watercolors when you spin them around, and it's hard to therefore present them in reflections in a way that doesn't withdraw itself. I mean, perhaps that's a characteristic of thinking itself, and well, let's stay with that for now. Perhaps it's not. Perhaps we need to readjust and be more exact where we can, better, more distinctions.